Hey, how's it going? Oh, that is just not a good look. Oh well, can't do anything about that at the moment. Please look at my signs. So, I don't know about you, but I've been in quite the lull. Sort of creatively. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like I don't have ideas and it's not like there's nothing there, but it's very hard to concentrate right now. And also, I still cannot find that notebook with the part of my novel in it. What I don't want to do is fixate on it and lose my mind. But yeah, I mean, I can't find it. And so during this holiday period from like probably just before Thanksgiving, I just kind of put the brakes on everything because I have some other stuff going on that I'm not talking about on here that has been a long time coming. It's in a difficult finishing stage, but it precipitates a major change in my life, like many changes. So I've sort of been just hibernating, like, in preparation for that. And I have been sort of onboarding a lot of information. And I don't know about you, but I'm fascinated by this whole Diddy arrest and all of the things that are coming out about him. But it's like I'm finding out more and more, like, really vile, nasty stuff that no one wants to look at head on, no one in their right mind. And there's like so many things that are happening right in front of your face. Trusted people talking to you, you trust them. They have every appearance of trustability. However, whenever you see someone the way you're seeing them, like you're seeing me right now, this is a different medium. It just happens to be the same sort of interface with the screen and I'm on this side and you're on that side, that whole format. But produced stuff, anything sort of installed national brand, big business, all of that stuff they present as something that they are not really in reality, because there's a structure in place that you can see it most clearly with wealth inequality. But what it is a pyramid structure, and like anything good, they can be abused and perverted and made not what they're meant to be, because there's an agenda completely driven to doing that. And that's part of the whole false front thing. Like, you'll hear a lot of talk about false flags. Even that's a distraction. It's like the very thing I'm talking about throwing itself up in your face to make you think something different from what you're actually seeing. And it's like, it's a perfect example of how they get you. Like, people get so fixated on that they're missing the bigger picture, which is kind of this inescapable element that we're all in. And it has to do with I believe the technical term is the Luciferian agenda. And the thing I think that people don't understand about that is it didn't just start like just anything in modern time. It's something that's been around for centuries. I don't, like, the Bible marks it, right? The Bible is the book that came along however many hundreds of years after the stories in it took place, allegedly, written by people obviously that probably weren't there. Although, total sidetrack, during those times, though, people were a lot longer lived, like it's in the Bible. Methuselah, that's a story about that, but that's a whole other sidetrack. But my point is when the Bible was written, probably the people that were in it and had to do with it were no longer around, or very, 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 very ancient. But that's when that was like, that story came out about the battle, or I don't know how much of a battle it was. It was kind of just like a teen angel rebellion, I guess. Because, I don't know, that's also very complex. I'm not even going to try. But that doesn't necessarily mean that that's when that began. That's just the recording that happened sometime after the fact. So, like I said, it has been going on for centuries, and I think it just moderates and modifies with the times. And if you study it at all, if you learn anything about it at all from like an academic standpoint, not from the standpoint of like joining up, but just like to understand like what are we dealing with here? And it's all about like inauthenticity and deflection, and just constantly changing with the times and changing with the style, so that it makes it harder to detect, and the temptations just become more tempting, I guess. So there's that always in the background. And sorry, it's not just relegated to bad things. Unfortunately, the reality of it is that it is the whole world, and you, like good, bad, or ugly, have to find your way in it, through it, and out of it. But you gotta see it and understand it to get past it and get beyond it, So, I sort of became aware of that unconsciously, subconsciously. Like, it works subconsciously. It tells you things, and and I first learned about that subconscious subliminal messaging from a show called Max Headroom back in the 80s. You can totally find it on YouTube, I'm pretty sure. There are certainly a lot of references to it, but one of the many things I picked up from that show was subliminal advertising, and they pretty much just laid it out, told you what it was, and made you aware that they weren't just, it's like the story of the Luciferian agenda. It didn't just happen when the Bible happened, so the subliminal messaging didn't just happen when I learned about it from that show. It had been happening all along. It was probably built in from the beginning, because what is an ad but a plea for you to buy a product? And so what do they want to do? Make the temptation the most tempting it can be to buy the product. And that's, for me, that's just a shade of that agenda, because you probably don't need it. You could make it yourself, but you're like, oh, I'm going to make my life easier, and it's going to give me more me time. And I could see how when that type of advertising campaign first came into being, how that was just like, oh my God, how wonderful, like, so much drudgery taken off of my hands and free time for whatever trad wives were allowed to do in the 50s. But really the truth is that it's just like getting you to do something with your time that is going to leave you with more idle time. And here's one of those things from the Bible again, or maybe not from the Bible, but from that sort of school of thought where it's like the devil's idle hands and idle time in your hands. Something about idle time and the devil, not good together. Too much trouble you could get into. And if you didn't have the washing machine that is so fabulous, and you actually had to do that stuff by hand and do the work and wear yourself out and tire yourself out, that's maybe something we should not have stopped doing. And yes, it's more work and it takes more time, but maybe filling the time in a constructive way was what was healthy. And to have this ease and convenience and time for thoughts that could not be productive, possibly other types of temptation that are not particularly helpful could come in, like, oh, the spouses are away and the other halves are, what do you know, we just bumped into each other, and you get to talking and maybe you have a couple of drinks and you meet a few times, and next thing you know there's an affair. I mean, just an example, right? But and I have this thing I call the Ministry of Unpopular Remarks. So that whole set of commentary there probably just slots right in there, but I don't care. So I had some cards that I pulled, and I've had them for a few days just stewing, and what I was thinking kind of was like, it wasn't really about that other stuff that I started off with, but it is kind of the fact that like I said, that whole setup, that whole agenda, that whole framework, we have an idea that it's like our doing and it's all good and bad stuff comes in, and it's like, no. The bad stuff made the whole framework and agenda. That's what we live in. We have to, if we want to be of service to each other, help each other along, and we'll be at various stages of awareness of all of these things, these types of things, and we'll react in various ways. And that's where, I guess like your light worker or your starseed or whatever, who would have some insight about stuff like this, could be there to explain, like, it's a thing. You don't have to panic and lose your mind. And I saw something. This is such a weird thing, but I'm leading up to something else. I saw something the other day that I saw it years ago when I first started learning about this stuff, like sort of outside of the way the Bible talks about it. And it was sort of like a guideline for the Luciferian, I guess, where they tell you right in front of your face what they're doing, even if it's just like the nastiest and most evil and gross, terrible thing, but they've got us so conditioned that we're just like, uh-huh. And then it's like, well, we told you we were going to do it, and you just said, uh-huh, so you can't say anything after if you're, fucked up, or you found yourself in some kind of situation, and it's the fault of this. You just said, uh-huh. Well, unfortunately, that's a dick move, but they kind of got you if they get you. Because the other thing that's happening there, in my opinion, is that's another opportunity for you to say, uh-uh. Like, you could say that crap and you can smile in my face and have just filth behind the mask. I see through that. Like, I don't, get out of here. I don't believe you. So, yeah, it's like living on a planet with a poison atmosphere. You find ways to live and you go on and you have your life and you make do when you have to, and you succeed and you do more than survive, and you thrive at times, and that's life. It ebbs and it flows, and And so that's not all there is. Like, we are able to create our own realities within this other kind of fucked up reality. And so when we're presented with these temptations and these opportunities to do the wrong thing, that's when we can say, no, don't want to do that. Don't feel good about that. That feels like a real crap thing to do to somebody or a situation. So I ain't going to do it. And ding, 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 you won that round. I think that's the way it works. So, with that in mind, I just want to bring up one more awful thing before I move on. If you saw that Nickelodeon documentary that came out last year that talked about that Dan guy, Dan Wilson? I think Dan Wilson's his name. I'll try and remember to link it. But if you check out that documentary and you get to the part about this Dan guy, it has to do with the show that Ariana Grande was on, which that was not something that I would have been watching. I was older than the demographic, and it just looked dumb. Like, I'll watch stuff that I'm not in the demographic for, definitely, but yeah, that was not for me. So, all those live action kids get shows, I don't know. I guess they gave me the willies, but anyway, that show and that guy had a particular sight gag that the first time I saw it, I knew exactly what it was, and it is a cum shot in the face. If you've seen a porno, or if you've even seen a reference of a porno, or a parody of a porno, which is more of that Luciferian shoving that crap right in your face. And you can say yes, or you can say no. That's like what I feel like when you come to that place in your life. That is the juncture to say yes, no, or keep going. Like, it's an option. It's where you make a choice. So, okay. Everybody who sees that, by the way, that liquid hitting that little girl in the face, realizes that, like, ew, that's simulating like grown-up liquid hitting a little girl in the face, which should not be. That should turn your stomach. That should like make all of your red flags start flapping away and snapping in your ear. Like, no. So, and then he tried to say, no, it's just funny, ha ha ha. But why? What's funny about it? Like, he could never say, we kids think it's funny. Yeah, they didn't get it when, like, you see in the documentary and they talk about it after. Like, they didn't know, like, what was wrong with it, but they didn't like it. They knew. Like, everybody knows, you stinker, liar, agenda, and abuse of young and innocent. The more points, I guess, you get in that sort of framework. And so, what I see in so many ads on mainstream television, and also like a whole lot in YouTube, and even like YouTube ads, which a lot of them seem like they're really DIY, you know, like public television, low-fi, like kind of bad. But maybe they're not. Maybe they're just made to look that way. But there is lots of ads with stuff, liquid flying into women's faces. Couple of times it's men. Way more women. Like, you may or may not go ahead and like hear what I'm saying and start noticing this. But I was really kind of pissed off the other day when I saw like this woman, some kind of ad, and had her whole body got hit with white liquid. It was just like, God, really? So I don't know if that means people are just kind of like, did catch on to it and are like, fuck that shit, and not being affected by that, and that might create a detectable energy. And then somebody decided to double and triple and quadruple down and do a whole body and go with white liquid. Like, really? Hi, I see you. That sucks, you loser. Like, that is such a like low bar. It's insulting, really. But I think people are not noticing. They're not paying attention. And then if you've grown up your whole life with that kind of subliminal crap literally kind of hitting you in the face, you don't know that there's something wrong with it. Maybe because those kids in that Nickelodeon thing, like, they talked to them when they were kids and when they were adults, and somebody noticed something was off, because a couple of kid interviews exist where they're talking about that liquid in the face thing, and you can tell they don't know what's wrong with it, but they don't like it. So you gotta use your senses, you know. You gotta kind of like make yourself aware. Like, it really depends on where you're at, and it could be like a maturity, emotional maturity. It could be that you're on like a new age path, and that's also your sort of lane and guideline. But I mean, if you can tell when something smells bad, you can just good for you. You got that much going for you. That's not nothing. So the reason why I'm even talking about all this ugliness and bringing it up is because, for one thing, everything that's here has a right to be here. And it's coming out and making us aware of it, and it's making us, I feel like, aware of a bunch of things, because it's like very similar to the Epstein thing, but it's mostly black people, so it's playing out very differently. There's a lot more exposure, but it's not as widely exposed as you would think, which I think works for the agenda. And but it's also an opportunity for us to see, like, oh, this is just bad, needs to go out into the garbage. Where it was just right there and you never smelled it or saw it or noticed it until like one thing drops the penny that makes you realize something's off about this. So it is linked, though, directly / indirectly to like Jeffrey Epstein's deal. Same situation, I think, pretty much. Like blackmail going on, getting all kinds of people to do things that they wouldn't do in their right mind, and getting them to do that in order to say yes or no, you can or cannot do this thing that you perhaps spent your whole life preparing to do and training to do, and then you meet some turd along the way that has to like horn in on your creative content and make it about them, and you got to be owing people stuff for, like, they didn't come up with it, it's your idea. And or else, though, be in a situation like with Diddy, where it was like a music label situation, and executives there were getting their perv on at these things with these people and calling it, yeah, you got to do this with me to get your music and your face out there. But then also they want you to present a bunch of stuff, and then they'll pick through it and go, you know what, I am not, like, it, like, say it's like a young black rapper, and then it's like some old, like, white Jewish guy that's not even into rap that'll look at what you present that you're all happy about, that you worked on, and, like, I don't know, like, at what point people's heads are at as far as the agenda when this kind of thing is going on. But the executives will then go, well, okay, fine, no, we're going to use what I pick. And it's like, why are you picking it? You have nothing to do with the experience at all. Like, what? That just blows my mind, and does explain why so much music is friggin' crap anymore. If they're the ones choosing it, the not musicians, it's like the not doctors at the insurance company, like the wrong people with a job. And I think, boy, we got to go through our stages of awareness faster, you know, like, catch up. Like, this is what's happening. These people are doing these things to you, and you haven't been aware. And in a way, you've been allowing it and going along with it because you weren't aware. But it's not a faulting. It's like a thing that we all hopefully eventually get to. We realize, oh wait, something is not kosher here. What is my position in this? Like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to act? Well, if I were going to give you any advice about that, I would say trust you before you trust anyone else. I mean, you can be educated, but really trust you, because you are the one that's first not going to lie to you, not going to try to put anything over on you. Ow, getting a little headache. So here's some cards I pulled the other day. And today is a full moon, and something else about this season, like, it's kind of a depressing season for a lot of people, and I like it. I do like spending time with people during the season. It's kind of like I grew up with it, and it just feels like if I'm not doing that, something's wrong. But this year, much like many previous years in my life over the past 30, there were times where I had some place to go and be with people and enjoy hanging out, and there were many years where I did not. And so this was one of those years, but a couple of elements of my life are drastically different, and it's made a difference. There's all of this stuff in the world going on that makes, like, your own life, if you're me, feel crazy with crazy sauce. And I don't even interact with people, like, literally, physically in person very often. It's weird. Anyway. So, oh yeah, so the build up to a full moon usually makes me feel kind of crazy with crazy sauce. And then this time of year, I'm usually like, if I don't have anything to do with other people, I usually get like kind of fragile and sad. And then in the middle of that, it's also my birthday. Yay! So yeah, today is my birthday. And I have not gotten the crazy full moon feeling. Even it will usually happen like in the 2 or 3 days prior to that, and I really have not been. I've been kind of like waiting and nothing. I don't know. I like it though. I like not feeling sad and lonely and depressed about it. There's reasons. I'm not going to spell all of those out for you that I don't feel that way, but it's good. I feel like it's progress because things have changed, but the main things that would have normally done that kind of thing to me, like made me feel all depressed for the holidays, they still are there this time, but there's differences in my life, so I'm not affected the same way. So hallelujah for that. So I got this card. I'm using the what's this thing called? The Sacred Soul Messages deck. And so I got this moon card, and I've been getting these cards from Amazon, and for some reason, even though I try not to, I keep choosing these ones that seem to come from somewhere with a language barrier, like English is not their first language. So you have to do even more divination with these cards sometimes, but this is one that was confusing. But I felt something, like with everything that I shared to begin with, like it's there, but it's hidden, like it's right there in front of you, but something about the light is off, like moonlight. Although this full moon is supposed to be one where things are very clear, like it's less about like being unsure of what you're actually seeing. Like that just felt like the uncertainty of what you're seeing is like sensing the darkness ain't right. Like, there's more to the darkness than it just being a lack of light. There's stuff in there. That kind of feeling. This one, when I was reading some reading and some listening to various things about it, there seemed to be a general agreement that this one was about authenticity and truth-telling and showing things as they are, which is weird with a moon card. But okay, let me read what's on here, if I can see it. The moon is bright when it doesn't avoid the night. Hey, I'm going to just read it all. Hang in there. Be patient. You are on the right track. So, this part about the moon being bright when it doesn't avoid the night. I live where there's a constant cloud cover. This morning when I woke up at 4:23, I immediately opened up my sliding glass door onto my deck to meditate out there, and there was the most gorgeous full moon framed by clouds, just so illuminated and so bright, like you could almost see craters on it. I think it's near right now, this particular moon, and that always adds a highly emotional factor, I feel like. But isn't it interesting, all of this stuff out of the darkness is coming to light. And I just got one of those images of dominoes falling, because the things are not so separate as we would think. The connections that apparently that Diddy guy had to just all kinds of people you would not imagine him even connected with are just fascinating. But that's not all. That world of covert activity that basically is fooling the public, the American public, it just stretches into all kinds of areas. Like, almost nothing is real. Like, almost nothing you look at is the reality of the situation. And I feel like that's really important for us to notice here as the year winds up and we're about to roll into something that looks to be even more deceptive and confusing. And I just had a flash of, like, I actually heard we ain't gonna let that happen. So angry people, like even MAGAs, like finally realizing, oh man, you know what, they were right about some of this stuff. And I knew one day that this was going to happen. Like, it hasn't happened yet, but it's starting to. Like, they're starting to get the idea, but they'll for sure get it as time moves on, unless something terrible happens before that. And what I was seeing is like a sort of torches and pitchforks situation, but a red, white, and blue wave, pretty much, of just like everybody realizing how rotten everything is to the core. And like, it's like the kid that murdered the CEO. It's kind of like everyone en masse going, how do we let it get this way? What the heck can we do about it? Everything is so ingrained. Kind of the only options we have left are like national strike type situations, or I don't mass torches and pitchforks. Well, those would be symbolic. We have real weapons in this country, so I mean, I don't think it would ever get to a thing where it was the stupid civil war people were talking about. Like, if everybody thinks, we don't want that, we still want to be able to live here. I know we want that. I know we don't want the other thing. Some of us have seen what the other thing looks like. We don't want that here where we live. I know that's true. So I don't think that minor skirmishes, perhaps, you know, there's always misguided people that think a couple of murders are going to start a race war, and that's not right. obviously you keep trying it and it don't work. You know why it don't work? Because it ain't gonna work. Anyway, other countries, if their leader messes up, they get rid of him, her, whatever, whomever. We have to realize we have the power to do that, because here's the thing. All the rich people that we're like, they got us this way. We can't do anything because of this and that and the other thing the rich people did. I have to remind us all, I think, that the rich people wouldn't have what they had if it wasn't for the blood, sweat, and tears of all of us. So somehow we make their shit happen, but they control us. Something wrong with that, in my opinion. Like, I think we're doing that wrong. I think we're doing it backwards. But that's what happens when somehow we let all the power congregate at the top of the pyramid, when the base of the pyramid should swallow that poisonous top. That's ridiculous. That kind of behavior, I just won't stand for it. And that might be the mass attitude we have to take to sort of make our own way in the agenda. So, this card here, it's interesting. It looks like a radio microphone and it's broadcasting music, and it's got green and red stars. It's kind of festive. Isn't that interesting? For the season, the Yuletide season here in the United States. And here, I'm just going to read the card before I say what I was thinking. Sing like birds, not worrying about what others think. Be yourself, share your heart, speak your truth. I think that's the only way you can be if the world is going to be this other thing that could be very dark. You could go all neg on it, but you don't have to, just because like if you didn't know any of what I just said or have a sense of it and you're just becoming aware of it now, don't go all depressed. You were fine. You're fine now. Don't let your mind run away with you. That's part of the agenda. Like, they know that things like that, they don't even have to do anything. Like, just knowing a little bit can work against you. So you have to make things work for you. You have to see things for how they are. So I have been thinking about this for a while, and I have actually started talking about it because I see elements of it showing itself here on like the YouTube world. So I call it the real resistance. And what it is not responding to the Republicans in kind, but doing like whatever they don't do, you know. But really what it comes down to is just conversations. Like, I have conversations with all types of different people from all different types of areas of life, and we have nice conversations. We get along. We thank each other for the nice conversation, or let each other know, like, that was fun, thanks, I liked hanging out with you. And I have to say that Blue Sky, which I just joined like the day before the election, I deleted my X account, and I think I can't remember if I joined Blue Sky before or after. I think before. Yeah, like maybe a week before. I was like, oh my God, this is such a breath of fresh air and so beautiful and so nice. I am so out of here, Twitter. And the only reason I was keeping it was to have a platform to share on, but it got like pretty nasty before I left, and I don't like mean for just the sake of it. Like, what? I would rather waste my time on being nice, being happy, singing songs and celebrating and having nice conversation and enjoying each other's company. So I feel like You can even be part of the other resistance that's always screaming and yelling with flags and blue waves and talking the same amount of static, sending it right back what you're getting from the Republicans. And if you want to get away from that, as I did, just know that if you follow me on Blue Sky and you have any of that stuff, I do not want to engage with you. I will block you. Because that is why I left X. I don't want to hear all of that racket. Everyone gets to have an opinion. Everyone has a right to be here. However, especially on Blue Sky and really on social media in general, you can edit out what you don't want to see or hear. And that's not a bad thing. And that's so much better than turning around and answering and starting like just a beef with some stranger over something one of your dumbasses said online, which is non-negotiable currency, yo. Okay, so the soreness is still with me. That's why I'm a tubbo, because I haven't been able to exercise. And I'm just, the holidays have tasty, fattening food. So anyway, something else I have ahead to deal with my agenda, and I was actually I had set a deadline, and it was pretty much today is the end of the lull season for me. Like, I'm gonna get it in gear more better and be more productive. And it's not a New Year's resolution. Fuck that trying to stick to some crazy ass promise. Like, if I do it, I do it. If I don't, I don't. I'm not gonna add that extra level of stress to anything of my life. Thank you very much. Okay, so this card, last card from the other day, and it says, the world is a mountain that reflects your words. Oh, sorry. Reflects. It doesn't say reflects, which echoes your words. Reflection, seeing. Oh, reflection's right under it. Reflection, seeing affects what you do matters. So, this mountain thing made me think of responding to the Republicans and the right wing and any of that kind of sort of ugliness pretty much coming at you from the right wing. And it's pervasive. It's not just like, it's escaped the boundaries of social media and that, and it's in our homes. And then I just have this is going to go in the ministry of unpopular remarks too, but here's something else that I've noticed recently. I was talking maybe a month ago about a content guy, a person that has a channel, what am I saying? A person on a YouTube channel, and it was called Professional Public Offender. And it's this young guy, probably 30s, talking about incels and just sort of men right now. And I was alarmed by not what he was saying so much, because he's kind of like one of these guys that wants to help break other guys like out of it. Like, God, dude, what are you doing? Like, anyway, the thing that I was disturbed by, or that piqued my interest in the worst way, was that he had a teacher on, middle school teacher, and he was talking about how just after the election there was all these 14-year-old boys in the hallways terrorizing, like being bullies basically, so terrorizing the girls and anybody that they thought was gay or trans, whether they actually were or not, because you know how young people are, they're just running around the brains and not really switched on. And they're chasing girls and saying, your body, my choice forever, and just being absolute crap, you know. And so that was disturbing, and that's not a side that I see, because I'm just not around those kids in that element. I don't have kids, the kids that are here steer clear. I think that's their parents tell them to, and I'm fine with that. That works for me, because I then saw another report shortly thereafter, and it was another report of young kids being just disrespectful and rude, and it was in another classroom situation, I think, and it was just that they couldn't like sit still and be quiet and like learn, and they couldn't let anyone else do it too. And then they, if you talk to them, they just come back just shit talking, like immediately. Like you can't even, teacher can't even say to them, like quiet down. Like it becomes like a whole like, you're a fag, and just bad. So people are like, what is going on with the kids? What's wrong with the kids? Well, here's the thing. I made this not great connection, but if you watch like a Trump rally, or even like left-wing alternate news, they're both kind of doing the same thing, where they're spewing mean and awful garbage, impugning people, strangers, calling whole groups of people names, which is like, what are you doing, man? Like, you lost the thread, and so it's like I can't listen to anybody, like everybody's yelling, and it's like, you are the mountain. Your echo is affecting your kids, which are society, which are going to be running things. And I've noticed that there's the literacy rate. I don't really see like the work of kids, but I understand they have no interest in learning cursive, which I was like hot and bothered when I was a kid, couldn't wait. They can't even read it. And I'm like, I remember not being able to read it, but that was before I knew my letters. After I knew my letters, I could tell what it said. They don't know how to do it. That blows my mind. But I'm actually not so upset by that, and it's not because I don't have kids. It's because I think something is happening that we're not recognizing, and I think it is that the way that they've grown up with the screens and the games, and that sort of framing their existence, and then also the world sort of moving in this sort of non-humanist direction. There's a lot of things like those splashes in the face, a lot of influences that are inserted in like every level of society. So it's just got to be so hard for kids to even know how to navigate, and then they have emotional problems because generations of adults before them never dealt with theirs, really, not on a level where it didn't not affect society badly. There's like connections to everything that makes sense if you look at them in a certain light. And so they may be just completely changing the framework, like linguistically. They bad stuff, like your instead of you apostrophe re drives me crazy. But also there's no point in bringing up grammar, which I actually am not 100 on myself, I have to say. But when I read like a European publication, or Europeans talking about the literacy level of adults being like that of the 6th grader, one of our 6th graders though, not one of theirs, it's not good. And it's going to make it hard for this generation or these generations to function with the rest of the world that I think are still learning this stuff. And that's all the result of some long games in this country by people, groups of colluding people, even with an agenda to destroy this nation. And that is a whole other framework, and it's so rickety. It's like the reason why, if you're really going to get down to it, because I'm talking about like Russia's hard on for America and for America to fail and just they can't stand us. It's not just Putin, but I mean, he's sort of like the distillated concentration of every, envious Russian generation that came before that. And like, America's Russia's problem. Like, really? Are we really? No. The problem is that we're doing stuff, or we have done stuff in this country that that we were getting attention for, and good attention, and everybody loved America and wanted to be like America and emulate and all of that, and nobody was saying that about Russia. And sour grapes is what I feel like what it amounts to, and that's generational, and that's kind of sick. Like, they're huge. They have a lot of people. They have a lot of land. They have a lot of undeveloped land. Like, what are you doing? Why are you wasting your people and your energy trying to get everything you're worth from everywhere else? Like, why are you neglecting your riches at home, your people at home? I don't know, like, we have the same disease here in America. But so that's, I feel like, one thing that happens, and that is like, we've been under constant attack. Like, they just want us to fail, and now they have like several operators at work here that have been, like, the program intensified over the past 20 or so years, and they're not even really hiding anymore the infiltration and the intent to just, I don't know, like, at first, I don't know, I see this weird image of like a building, but it's a tent and it's on stilts, and like, it's the US and like our adversaries like Russia and China, who also, I guess, is jealous and also has the same setup. Like, they got a big country, they got a bunch of people and the resources. I don't know, like, why you're screwing them, Russia and China. Why you're not doing, like, do it your way. Like, why do you gotta take us down? You can't, like, make yourself into the victor. Like, I don't even understand that attitude, but it's very butthurt, and it needs therapy. It's not healthy. So, okay, it profits those other adversarial nations for us to be stupid and fighting each other, and too stupid to see that it's a plan against us. Hi, there's a not false flag. They only put those so you don't see what's really happening, and that is something that people have gotten right. But look in the right places for the wrong things, though. And I guess I'm going to close on some thoughts about the deep state. Let me ask you, when Trump started talking about the deep state, did you know what the hell he was talking about? I had an idea, because I've always had this suspicion that there was like this other framework and agenda type thing happening, and I may not have been able to specify exactly what I thought I was perceiving, but I knew something was not right. So now okay, so the thing about the Trump and the deep state that was confusing is that, to me, he's always been a dishonest criminal. So for him to be talking about the deep state and people doing stuff wrong, and he knows how to fix it, and he knows what's wrong, the whole time I was going, yeah, because you're a part of it. Like, whatever kind of criminal enterprise you're trying to make it out to be, you're making it sound like you're a part of it, and the way your activities have pointed to you being a part of something like it. So keep talking. So I came across this YouTube channel called Eyes Wide Open, and that is a phrase that was in a George W. Bush speech. And I watched the first episode of that, which was about the United States and the birth of the deep state. I forget the actual title, but Eyes Wide Open, episode 1. And there you see exactly what the deep state is, and my instinct was correct about Trump and the deep state. It is corruption. It is the intelligence agencies, the CIA is the one that they talk about in the episode, but it's not the only one, I'm sure. I don't know if you remember when George W. Bush was president, there was like black sites and rendition and missing $400 million and all of this stuff, and it's like the hammer that cost some ridiculous amount of money. That is ways that the government was getting tax money to spend on stuff they were not talking about publicly, and would have been kind of hard to find if you didn't have certain clearances, I think. That's some deep state stuff right there. But to summarize that episode, the CIA from the very beginning was doing illegal stuff and using nations and peoples of nations, not necessarily our own, to pull shenanigans and drug deals and all kinds of illegal stuff. And this is the cops. This is the intelligence agency. So that's the fish head. That's where it starts from. And I just thought it was funny and ironic that, like, okay, so that's the deep state. I guess I was right in my ignorant way, and that's terrible, and that's us. And so if you hear other countries, if you didn't already pick up on us not being completely on the up and up, and the greatest people from the greatest country in the world, like, if you kind of caught a whiff of that being a little bit fake, you were right. Because I was just going to pull a card to see what it would have to say after all of that talk. Just a second. Let me grab it. Oh, there's 2. So, cat food. I got this lotus flower looking deal. Flower bud of life thing, and it reads, let's see, why be unhappy when your soul is in full bloom? Health, spiritual growth, choosing happiness. Living inside the agenda. It doesn't have to be dark and life-killing. You have light and a life flower inside of you. Burst forth and bloom, I think is what that's about. And then this here one, which I always see as literally opposing sides choosing to uphold each other. And this one reads, I'm not going to open that again because yuck. Okay, maybe I will because I can't freaking see. Love is the bridge between you and everything. Connection, oneness, finding your way forward. Truth, I think that is the truth. And I think because it's so easy to do all of the other stuff that we have been doing, even unconsciously, even consciously, we've chosen the easier path. Because the easier path is not to say, I forgive you for the horrible things that you did and the people that you let or made die. I forgive you. I forgive you for the horrible things that you did to me. I forgive you for the horrible things that, as a nation, in my name, that you've done. And also just to be, like, love. To not be the person that responds in kind with harsh words and actions. To, as much as you can. And I'm not saying, you have to be all, going up to strangers and giving them hugs and telling them that you love them, because people are not going to react well to that. I can tell you that right now. Because they're not ready for it. They don't know you, probably. Like, you gotta start with yourself. Start with yourself, and then as the mountain, let your echoes do the work for you. In other words, be the example is what they say. And so I think I'm finished. I think I'm finished. Thank you and good night.